Boundaries of love. Emily had always known her relationship with her mother-in-law, Margaret, was complex, but nothing could have prepared her for the ultimatum that was delivered over a cup of tea one Sunday afternoon. Margaret, a woman of imposing presence and a knack for control, had invited Emily to her ornate home in the suburbs. The house was a monument to Margaret's meticulous nature, every piece of furniture perfectly arranged, every surface spotless. It was the kind of house that made Emily feel as though she needed to watch every step she took. As they sat in the sunlit conservatory, the conversation started innocuously enough, touching on the weather, recent family events, and the latest gossip from Margaret's bridge club. But Emily sensed an underlying tension. Margaret's pleasantries were always laced with an agenda, and today was no different. "Emily, dear," Margaret began, her tone deceptively sweet, "I've been thinking about the future of our family. It's important that we have a baby in the house. You know how much I long to be a grandmother." Emily shifted uncomfortably in her seat, feeling the weight of Margaret's gaze. She knew where this conversation was heading, and her heart started to race. "I understand, Margaret," Emily replied cautiously. "John and I have talked about it, and we do want children, but we also want to make sure we're ready, both emotionally and financially." Margaret's smile tightened. "That's all well and good, but time waits for no one. I expect you to be pregnant within a year. If you're not, you'll have to pay me $3,000 a month." Emily's jaw dropped. "What? You can't be serious." "Oh, I'm very serious," Margaret said, her voice steely. "It's either a grandchild or the money. This family needs to grow, and if you can't make that happen, you'll compensate me for the disappointment." Shocked and distressed, Emily left Margaret's house in a daze. She couldn't believe the demand placed upon her. How could anyone make such an unreasonable request? She knew she had to talk to John about it. When John came home that evening, Emily recounted the entire conversation, her voice trembling with emotion. John listened, his expression growing darker with every word. "That's ridiculous," he finally said, wrapping his arms around Emily. "She has no right to dictate our lives like that. We'll figure this out together." The next few months were a blur of heated discussions, legal consultations, and tense family dinners. Margaret refused to back down, and the pressure on Emily grew unbearable. She felt trapped between her own desires, her husband's support, and his mother's relentless demands. One day, Emily decided she had had enough. She wasn't going to be bullied into making such a life-altering decision. She met with a lawyer and explored her options. To her relief, she found that Margaret's ultimatum had no legal standing. It was nothing more than a cruel manipulation. Armed with this knowledge, Emily and John confronted Margaret together. They stood firm, explaining that their decision to have children would be made on their own terms, not hers. They also made it clear that they would not be paying her a cent. Margaret was furious, but Emily and John stood their ground. It wasn't easy, and the strain on their relationship with Margaret was palpable. However, over time, they found peace in knowing they had taken control of their own lives. Eventually, Emily and John did decide to start a family, but it was on their own terms and in their own time. They welcomed a beautiful baby girl into the world, and while Margaret was overjoyed to finally be a grandmother, Emily made sure she understood one thing: her family would never again be dictated by ultimatums and unreasonable demands. In the end, Emily learned a powerful lesson about standing up for herself and the importance of setting boundaries, even with family. It wasn't an easy journey, but it was one that ultimately led to a stronger, more independent life for her and her new family. The context and background Margaret's background had always been one of control and structure. Growing up in a strict household, she had carried those values into her adult life. She believed in order, in having things done her way, and in her mind, the family was no exception. Her son, John, had always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. When he married Emily, Margaret saw it as an opportunity to expand her control over another aspect of her life. Emily, on the other hand, came from a more liberal and laid-back family. Her parents had always encouraged independence and critical thinking. They believed in letting their children make their own decisions and learn from their mistakes. This fundamental difference in upbringing set the stage for the inevitable clash between Emily and Margaret. The emotional strain. The ultimatum put a significant strain on Emily and John's marriage. Emily found herself constantly second-guessing her actions, wondering if she was somehow to blame for Margaret's demands. John, caught between his love for his mother and his wife, struggled to balance the two relationships. He knew his mother's behavior was unreasonable, but he also knew how deeply ingrained her need for control was. Their home, once a sanctuary, became a battleground of emotions. Emily's anxiety grew, and John found himself increasingly frustrated. They sought the help of a marriage counselor, hoping to navigate the storm together. The counselor, a calm and empathetic woman named Dr. Caldwell, provided them with tools to communicate more effectively and to support each other against external pressures. The legal battle. Emily's meeting with the lawyer, Mr. Thompson, was a turning point. He was a seasoned attorney with a reputation for handling delicate family matters with precision. He assured Emily that Margaret's demands had no legal basis and that she could not be compelled to comply. Mr. Thompson advised Emily to document every interaction with Margaret, especially those where she reiterated her demands. This documentation would serve as evidence if the situation escalated. Emily felt a sense of empowerment, knowing she had legal support. Confronting Margaret. The confrontation with Margaret was intense. They chose a neutral location, a small cafe in the city where they could speak openly without causing a scene. Margaret arrived, her demeanor icy and unyielding. Emily and John sat side by side, presenting a united front. "Mother, we need to talk about your demands," John began, his voice steady but firm. Margaret's eyes narrowed. "There's nothing to discuss. My terms are clear." Emily took a deep breath. "We've consulted a lawyer, Margaret. Your ultimatum has no legal standing. We will not be paying you any money, and our decision to have children will be made on our terms, not yours." Margaret's face reddened with anger. "You ungrateful children! After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me?" John remained calm. "We appreciate everything you've done, but this is our life. You cannot dictate our decisions. We hope you can respect that." Margaret stormed out of the cafe, leaving Emily and John feeling a mix of relief and sadness. Finding peace over the following months, the tension with Margaret remained, but Emily and John found solace in their strengthened relationship. They continued their sessions with Dr. Caldwell, who helped them navigate their emotions and reinforce their boundaries. They also focused on their careers and hobbies, ensuring that their lives were rich and fulfilling, regardless of the pressure to start a family. Emily took up painting. Engineer, immersed himself in a new project at work, finding satisfaction in his professional achievements. Starting a family. When Emily and John finally decided to start a family, it was a joyous occasion. They had taken the time to ensure they were both ready, and the decision felt right. Emily's pregnancy was smooth, and they eagerly anticipated the arrival of their daughter. Margaret, though initially distant, slowly began to thaw. The sight of her granddaughter softened her heart, and while the relationship would never be the same, there was a tentative truce. A new beginning. With the birth of their daughter, Emily and John entered a new chapter of their lives. They were determined to raise her in an environment of love, respect, and independence. They wanted her to grow up knowing that she had the power to make her own choices, and that she should never let anyone dictate her life. Emily found a new strength within herself. She had faced down manipulation and emerged stronger for it. The experience had taught her the importance of standing up for herself and her family. It was a lesson she intended to pass on to her daughter, ensuring that the next generation would be free from the shadows of unreasonable demands. In the end, Emily and John's story was one of resilience and growth. They had faced a significant challenge and had emerged stronger, more united, and ready to face whatever the future held. When Emily married John, she knew her relationship with her mother-in-law, Margaret, would be challenging. But nothing could have prepared her for the shocking ultimatum. Have a baby within a year, or pay Margaret $3,000 a month. As Emily and John navigate the emotional and legal battles that follow, they confront manipulation, set firm boundaries, and ultimately learn the true meaning of family and independence. This is a story of resilience, strength, and the unbreakable bond between a couple determined to live life on their own terms.